Hello, this is Gradye Parsons, and this is our continuing series on the Presbyterian Book of Order, looking at the section called Foundations of Polity, which is the first section, sort of the basic ground root section of the book. Today we're looking at section F-3.03 and F-3.04, which are about the foundational statements themselves. The statements contained in this section, the foundations of Presbyterian polity, describe the ecclesial and historical commitments on which the polity of the Presbyterian Church, U.S.A. rests. Provisions of any part of this Constitution are to be interpreted in light of the whole Constitution. No provision of the Book of Order can of itself invalidate any other. Where there are tensions and ambiguities between provisions, it is the task of councils and judicial commissions to resolve them in such a way as to give effect to all provisions. And then in F-3.04, it lists what is the Constitution of the Presbyterian Church, which consists of the Book of Confessions, and the Book of Order, both, not one over the other, but both, all under Scripture. These two sections are the last parts of the Foundations of Polity, the last parts of this first section of the Book of Order, and it is described in here, as we have seen over our series of conversations, the very basic sort of fundamentals of what it means to be part of this particular Presbyterian Church. Our history, our understanding of how we govern ourselves, understanding of what Christ means to us, what Christ is calling us to be as a church. All of these are described in this section. And in the authors who put together the Revised Book of Order thought this part was so important that perhaps it should be set aside as a separate section, which is what they did, again called the Foundations of Polity. And that's what we've been studying these many months. To interpret any one part of the Constitution, it does say you have to look at the whole Constitution. It's the same thing we say about Scripture. To interpret any one particular part of Scripture, you have to look at the whole of the witness of Scripture. You can't just proof text or pick individual parts out and ignore other things. But it's also good to be reminded that this book, the Book of Order, and this book, the Book of Confessions, are twins. They're not identical twins, but they are fraternal twins, and these twins are the governance structures of our church. They describe how we live our life together. They describe what we believe and how we believe. The Book of Confessions really is a history of how we came to be who we are. And both of these things, the Book of Order and the Book of Confession, are worthy of your time as a ruling elder or a teaching elder to study, not just for a test, but to study from time to time and to reflect upon that in your own session. When is the last time in your session you actually talked about the Book of Confessions? Talked about the creeds or any one particular part of the creed, or let part of the creeds inform a decision that you are making or thinking about as a church. There's much wisdom in there. These are all the result of the work of lots of people over a long period of time answering specific contextual questions, but still have something to say to us in this day and time and in this century. So I encourage you not just to pick up your Book of Order when you're going to be tested as an elder, or not just to pick it up and let it get dusty, or take your Book of Confessions and let it get dusty. But I really encourage you to study both these two books, because they contain our story, they contain our narrative, they contain the words and wisdom and the understandings of how we live our life together in this grand bargain that we have as a Presbyterian church. Someone recently asked me why I'm part of this church. Why do I want to continue to be part of this church? And part of that is the promises, not that I've made, but the promises that people have made to me and for me. Promises at my children's baptism, when they promised to help raise my children along with us and to raise them to be the kind of people they want to be. Promise to be a witness to those children as they were being raised. Promises made at ordinations and installations and along the steps along the way. Promises of what they promised to give to me and give to the church and give to our lives. And those promises are what I'm trying to live into and trying to live up to. Trying to live into those, to be the kind of person that those people promised in faith to support me to be. And that's why I'm part of this church. And I think in your time as a session and your time as a ruling elder, you might want to ask yourselves that question. Why do you care about this church? And why do you love this church? And use this book, the Book of Order, use that Book of Confessions to inform you and to open up your mind and your heart as to why you love and live inside this particular church. And do that, and we'll talk again. Thanks. Bye.